My name is Morna Gerard and I'm interviewing Gabriela McNicoll for Georgia State University's Women's March Oral History Project. The date is March 9th, 2018, and the interview is taking place at Georgia State University. So let's start with where you were born and the year that you were born.
Okay, I was born in Sao Paulo, Brazil, in 1977.
How did you get from Brazil up to Atlanta?
Well, so half my family is Cuban and the other half is Southern. And so my dad and my mom moved there because my dad, was trilingual and he spoke lots of languages, and so he worked for a company in Sao Paulo doing just business. So we've lived in Brazil and Santo Domingo and Miami, and so it's been a steady process going. And I went to college in St. Paul, so I thought that was a nice bookend. So yeah.
Where was your favorite place to live?
So far, I think Atlanta. I think I love the people of Atlanta probably the most. It's my formative years, so I went to high school here.
So when did you arrive in Atlanta?
My parents divorced, and so we moved out of Miami, moved to Orlando, and then moved to Atlanta when I was probably 12 or 13.
And what general area of Atlanta do you see?
I grew up in Buckhead, but I live in Edgewood, so
okay.
Yeah.
Can you describe your family's political leanings?
We are very liberal, to be honest. And it's unusual, especially with the Cuban background that I have, because my grandfather was a professor of Latin American history at University of Miami, and he started the Hispanic American Institute there. And he met my grandmother because he taught at University of Havana. And so it's unusual to have, and they left prior to Castro coming in power, and my grandmother remembers how awful Batista was, and she grew up impoverished. And so she remembers Batista shooting students and, stopping free speech in Cuba. So I think it's generationally where she sat in the whole order of Cuban politics. And so we've always been super liberal, but she was never able to talk about it in Miami where she lived.
And is she still alive?
No, she passed.
Can you tell me what your profession is?
I am a data administrator in the College of Education and Human Development. So I report all of our data federally to Title II. We do U.S. News and World Report and all that kind of good stuff.
And this is at Georgia State University?
This is at Georgia State College of Education and Human Development.
Okay. What political party do you support, if you support one?
Oh, I'm definitely a Democrat. A raging Democrat.
Have you been involved in any political activities in the past?
I have, but more sort of, I have not marched. I don't think anything shook me as much as the past year and a half has shook me. And I don't know if that's because I'm older, so I'm 41, and I'm a mom. So that's something just really after the things that I saw happening like Newtown and in the NRA, I just was shook. So I've always donated to causes, but I've donated now more. So, I support the ACLU, I support Southern Poverty Law Center. So I'm doing what I can financially where maybe I can't do it time-wise.
And did any of your, like you said, your family were very liberal?
Very.
Did any of them march or?
Oh yeah, I mean my dad, my aunt, and my uncle were all arrested protesting in Miami. The 68 convention, I think it was not 68, that's Chicago. So one of the conventions that the Republicans had in Miami, they were of the arrested. So, and it was awesome because, they were incredibly supported by my grandmother and grandfather because they were, left-leaning as well, and Nixon was Nixon. And so they were all arrested, which is a huge point of pride for my family.
So I take it then when you decided you were going to march, you didn't have pushback from...
No pushback. But I also didn't really tell anybody, so it was more like my husband and my daughter were super supportive. They made me t-shirts. And my friends were super supportive. I didn't really tell my family, which I don't know why. It wasn't kind of an announcement that I made. And so I posted pictures on Facebook and my family was like, oh my God, you were there, what are you doing? And so they were super excited about it. But it was only after when I posted like a picture of like, you know, the Washington Monument, and they were like, oh, what the hell, you were there? So they were very proud of me, and my dad was very proud of me that I went, that I took part.
So for the record, you went to DC?
I did. I went to DC. I took a bus with one of my best friends, and we did not sleep on the bus. It was not the ideal traveling situation, but it was the most amazing and restorative thing that I participated in last year.
And I want to get back to the buses, but before I get there, I want to step back a little bit to the night of the election. Can you tell me how that unfolded for you? What was going through your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me the election was, you know, that day I woke up and I absolutely put on a pantsuit. I took my daughter, she is 7 years old, and I got her a little jacket from the Value Village, and we went and voted and took pictures, and it was amazing. And it felt, for the first time for women to have somebody represent them that they felt super excited about, that we finally got to the table when we've never been there and never even conceived of being there. It was never, I mean, I remember I grew up in Miami, and I still have my Geraldine Ferraro button from when she ran with Mondale, and I still have it. And I don't know why that's so powerful, but it was incredibly powerful for me to take photos with my daughter, to have her be with me, because I had no context for that, and I want her to never feel to not have the ability to see themselves in their leadership. So we win, and we were super excited, and I had been, you know, reading Nate Silver like an obsessive compulsive to make sure that, you know, it was gonna be okay. And I remember sitting there watching the returns with my husband and just being gobsmacked and not having any ability to sort of process that, because it felt like a betrayal. It felt like a betrayal because of who the candidate was that won. And he was such a misogynist, and he was, there was no repercussions for assault, and there was no repercussions for how demeaned. He talked about people of color and women, and, you know, especially coming from, you know, an immigrant, you know, in my family who is Latin American, and having somebody who absolutely dehumanized the other in this election cycle. It was crushing. So I ended up drinking a glass of wine really fast when I started to see how this was panning out, and I absolutely went to bed. I was like, I can't watch this, I'm not gonna watch it, because it just shook me, it crumbled me, because it felt like a betrayal. Especially, you know, I understand that people had issues. I absolutely loved having Barack Obama as a president because he represented all of us. And yeah, that was the absolute opposite of what this felt like. And it felt gendered. It felt really gendered. The hatred felt gendered. The fact that this was a woman who was exceptional in politics, incredibly, you know, brilliant, and to have her reduced in the way that she was in the media was, and among people, was really difficult.
So the day after the election, did you go to work?
I went to work and I wore all black. And I think I wore all black for like 2 or 3 weeks. Like, I went to work, and I remember I walked into work, and we have a student assistant who sits at our reception desk. And I looked at her, and she looked at me, and we both started tearing up. And I remember saying, I don't understand. I don't understand this at all. And I remember seeing her, this was a student, and I remember seeing her, and she was like, so, you know, this young, beautiful woman who now just got kind of like what we have had to deal with as older women our entire lives. This young woman had it in her face, and it's like that crushing of youth that I just saw in her, and I just couldn't look at her past the bird. We just sort of connected, had her welling up, and then I went right to my office and shut the door. You know, I mean, it was that crushing. Like, I just saw sort of, it crushed me more to see it in her because of her age.
Now, your daughter, you say, is 7 years old.
Yes.
Is she aware of all of this?
Yes, and I think, to be honest with you, I probably speak too frankly in front of my child, my husband and I, too frankly about politics in front of our child. because, you know, she would say things like, you know, Donald Trump's awful, I can't stand him, but she has no, you know, it's her taking on things that my husband and I have said. So I do want her to kind of make her own determination about things. And so that's been sort of difficult for me to kind of censor myself and not be the kind of person that I am as a woman, which is very outspoken. I have no problem saying what I think. So yeah, that's been a tough thing. But fortunately, her school doesn't have sort of, that I have heard, doesn't have a sort of like, didn't have the immediate ramifications of a Trump presidency where it was like bullying increased and people were awful to immigrant kids. And that's been really fortunate because we are, you know, we go to Atlanta Public School, inner city school, and it's super diverse, which is a wonderful thing. So I've been really fortunate in the environment that she is currently in, that hopefully those things don't impact her directly, for right now.
How did you explain, I mean, did you have to explain that the person who won the election, the bad guy won the election, and if the world was a good place, the bad guy would never win, you know?
Yeah, I don't know if I said it that way, but that's something that I think I could, you know, to say that, you know, this is not over and it inspires you to fight more and do more and really be sort of the change that you need to see in the society that you live in. So we've had really like honest conversations about bullying and things like that, and how do you, as an empathetic person, deal with that sort of energy if somebody is a bullier. And I think it's odd, but I think kids really are aware of him as Trump as a bully. And so that kind of sparked it. But I haven't kind of said like sometimes the bad guys win. You know what I mean? Because that seems like really sort of like existential negativity that I'm like, I kind of like don't really, and granted it's coming, but I don't really want to sort of be like, okay, let's listen to Karen wear black because that's really kind of where it is. You know what I mean? So I'm trying not to, I'm just trying to do the grander, like more positive lessons of like, you know, we know who this person is, you know who this person is. It is not okay that this person says the things that he says. It's not okay that, and it's okay to feel really betrayed by your fellow Americans in a way that's super fundamental. So yeah.
I don't have children, but I really do, I'm very interested to see how
Yeah, it's
people with
hard.
children, especially with girls.
With girls. And I, you know, to be honest, like fortunately, like she hasn't, like the sexual assault component of like everything that was going on with Trump and like, you know, that being okay, and you know, she's sort of not aware of like the Me Too movement, and she's sort of not aware of those things yet, but they're coming, and they're coming faster than I'm sort of prepared mentally to kind of deal with. So I need to actually get on it and have those conversations about her as a girl and what this means, and how do you create your own autonomy as a girl child growing up in this culture that says it's okay to, you know, sexually assault folks or whatever.
Does she get to have access to the news?
She does, and we do watch the news. We watch a lot of MSNBC. So, I mean, to be honest, like I'd rather her watch like Democracy Now!, you know, whether or not she can sort of, you know, understand that. But I think that is a more, less soundbited, you know, and you know, it really is true. It's like how, you know, right now the news cycle is Stormy Daniels, and it's like, you know, I'm not going to show my child about Stormy Daniels. I'd rather have her see like, you know, bigger picture stuff, like what the kids are doing fighting NRA or what is going on in the rest of the world, that gives her some context of empathy and how do you kind of deal with the realities that need to be changed.
It's a strange time when you have your news cycle is talking about porn stars and the president and
Right.
this is a weird
Right, and that I have to like, you know, if my child asks me what a porn star is, you know, and that's, we even, I mean, she's 7, we haven't had that conversation, even about sex, you know, and so that's, you know, and maybe I need to, you know, and that's the thing, is like, where is that line, and you know, raising a daughter right now in this particular mess.
Although it would be better to talk about sex in a beautiful, loving kind
Yes,
of way than that.
than Stormy Daniels and porn star, and Hush Money, you know what I mean? And also that it's like that, that's who we've elected, and that is like also, I think, part of what is like shook me so much is like, yeah, we're just things. We're not, we have no humanity past what we provide to men.
So how quickly did you decide, I'm going to march, and I'm going to march in DC?
Oh, as soon as it was up. So as soon as I saw like the Women's March start to kind of germinate on Facebook and places like that, I was like, I'm going. And I remember, it was the only thing I felt like I needed to take an action. I needed to physically take an action to, my chest was like, my heart was broken. And so it was the only thing to like sort of try to patch it together was action. And so as soon as I started, I saw that this was happening. I was like, I'm in. I sent an email to my girlfriends and said, I'm going to this. I would love if you came with me, but I have to go because I don't know what to do with this rage. I don't know what to do with this incredible sadness. And so, so it was really what I needed to sort of just tape it together, and keep on going and be like, you know what, I got knocked down, but I'm getting up. And that's what it was for me. So like as soon as it was announced, I was like, I'm doing it.
And so your friend who works at Tech,
she was like, absolutely, let's do it. Because she had the same feeling. She had the same feeling that she works at Georgia Tech in HR for immigration right. So she basically gets visas and green cards for faculty and students that work there, right? So it's sort of like this, and this was pre-ban, but we knew he had been saying all along that, these people are bad, these people are good. And, it was that super white supremacist sort of like everything he said had that message, whether it was, overt or it was a dog whistle, it was there. And who he was filling his campaign with was the same. I mean, Bannon is a white supremacist. And there's what's happening here. And so for her, it was immediate because she felt the same way and she needed to take some action because she's dealing on a personal level day to day with the struggles that immigrants feel, especially students and scholars who are coming to this country to, contribute intellectually to our society. And so, so she was in.
So you decided you were going to take a bus.
Oh my gosh, that was...
How did you get hooked up to the
I think it was through like the Women's March Georgia folks, or all of the sister marches that were happening and the main national march. It was like they were trying to figure out the logistics because there was such a groundswell of these women who were so pissed off. And I mean, that really was kind of my overwhelming feeling was anger. And so that's how we did it. So they created this travel, they had buses going out of every city that you could get to. It was super they were trying to raise funds for folks who couldn't afford to get there, to get them there. So it was part of that whole process of signing up for buses, what bus are we taking, where are we leaving from, all of that good stuff.
What number was your bus?
I don't remember. I have pictures, but it was a traumatic experience for me, to be honest with you, because I don't sleep on buses. So I was just like, oh my God. But my girlfriend was like, let's take, because I was like, can we fly there and she was like, no, can we take a bus? I was like, okay, take a bus.
Where did you get picked up?
In Decatur, so at Mudfire, I think is the name of so it's a pottery studio in Decatur, and it was this phalanx of buses that were just I think there was probably 8 or 9 buses in this row, and all these women were just so it was so the most amazing experience. And my husband and daughter dropped me off, and her husband and her 2 kids dropped her off, and it was this Norma Ray moment where it's signs in the air, and our everybody's like, yes, let's go, and it was it was amazing. And it was amazing for our families to see us being nope, we're gonna do this. It was really, I wanted to show her that yes, you can do something. whatever it is, you can do something to sort of say no.
And it's the right thing to do.
And it's the right thing to do.
Protest
It's moral.
is the, yeah.
You know, it is absolutely the most, what we are founded on as a country, for sure. And what other countries have the same, you know, but that is fundamentally what America is founded on, the ability to say no. No tyranny.
So you got on the bus, did you take snacks and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, I took snacks. I had to have a clear book bag, so I had to go buy a clear book bag like I was going to a rave, which was hilarious. So I had a clear book bag. I had like all my like, you know, granola bars, cheese, everything, you know. I think I even tried to bring a sleep mask because it was like that clinging to hope to go to sleep. But yeah, it was great. It was so cold in those buses. I don't know what it is with like, I don't know if it's Georgia, I don't know what. It was freezing, so that was part of it. And I remember my girlfriend and I had our jackets and we were trying to like, people were sleeping on the aisle of the bus floor. It was as miserable as not sleeping in, it was still joyful. So, I mean, you know, it is what it is. It's like complaining about like, you know, something that.
So was there a lot of chatter on the bus or was it?
There was, except for like past a certain point. So because it was an all-night drive, I think we got on the buses at like 7, and then we were supposed to arrive in DC at like 11. And it was really funny too because all the buses were linked in this bus company was linked. We would hear like the rumors of like this bus broke down. Are they gonna make it? Like it was like so we would all stop as like this massive group of buses at like different rest stops and stuff, and everybody would get out like sort of super tired. But yeah, it was always the scoop of like who's on what bus and is it broken down? Are they gonna make it? And like you know, it was really funny.
So you arrived in DC.
Yes, we arrived late in DC, but not super late. So we arrived in DC probably around 10 o'clock. They took us and dropped us off, and then they dropped us off at a place that was sort of like I think it was a sports arena, and I don't really remember the name of it because I'm not really that familiar with DC. But they dropped us off at a sports arena, and everybody just started like piling out of the buses and getting ready. And I remember, like before we went, I remember we talked about the pussy hats, and we talked about like, we're gonna have a pussy hat, we're gonna do that. And I did not want a pussy hat. I wanted the Pussy Riot balaclava. So I got a pink one that I ordered and cut out the Pussy Riot like eye holes because that's how I felt. I did not feel, and not to take away from the pussy hats, but that didn't feel empowering to me. You know, I grew up punk rock, so I'm going full anger, like, and so yeah, I totally had the balaclava. And I remember, like, starting to see, so we all get out of the buses and it becomes this wave of people walking. Nobody knows where they're going except for the few people who put it on the maps, like Google Maps, and we're all like, and so we're just following the, yes, so we're just following everybody. And it starts to like, it was probably the most massive and beautiful thing to see, because you see like, it you know, you start in your group of like 10 people from a bus or 20 people from a bus, and everybody's sort of, you know, like coalescing in the middle and walking towards whoever's leading. And then all of a sudden, you know, as you're walking down more streets comes more women, and more streets comes more women, and men, there were some men. But it was like this wave. And it was the most, you started as a stream, and as you're getting closer to the mall, it becomes this mass, and it felt awesome. It felt so good to be around all these people and to watch it and to read the signs and to love the signs and laugh or be empowered by them or feel some kind of way about what was happening. And I remember, I'm a film student here too, so a graduate film student, so I remember I got I was gonna record it all. So I had my phone and I had like my ability to record everything, and I got some footage and stuff. But it was just the most empowering feeling to see it, just to watch this like wave of women and humanity come together to say what they needed to say.
You talked about signs.
Yes.
Did you have a sign yourself?
We did. We had signs. Our sign was "White silence equals violence," because I think that that was a really big part of what was missing from the Women's March was voices of women of color. And I know the organizers, I felt really empowered by the organizers because I saw the leadership of the Women's March represent women of color. That did not translate into the march as much. But at the same time, like, we did want to sort of highlight those voices because it is an issue. It is an issue that needs to be addressed in larger feminist movements, and it always has been, and it still needs to be. And I feel like I'm hopeful that every step we take is closer. But yeah, so that was our sign, was that.
Were there any others that stuck out as being like?
Oh, I took pictures of amazing ones. One of my favorite was trying not to overreact, and it was like overreact. So that was one of my favorites. Another one of my favorites was a sign that I said, we need or calling for a time machine. When do we need it? It doesn't matter. And then one of them was like, Trump gives me angina. Oh, I need to remember it because I took a picture and it was like forever on my thing. It was, oh, Trump gives me angina. I know medical terms despite my vagina. And I was like, these are the most amazing, like those are the kinds of like signs that really just stuck out to me because it was like surreal. Some of them were like ridiculously surreal, like the time machine where it was like, this is amazing. And then the overreact was amazing. But yeah, there were so many that were just stunning and beautiful.
So you said mostly it was white women.
Yes.
But what else? Who else did you see there? Who else was represented?
You know what I saw that I was really, really excited about was older women and older men. And so, and I mean older as in like, 70s. I saw a woman and took a picture with a woman who must have, I think when I asked her, she said she was 85. And that felt amazing because I know that they, and yesterday was International Women's Day, and I remember I posted something about International Women's Day yesterday, saying, and it's a drawing of a uterus, and the ovaries are doing this. And I said, Happy International Women's Day, I love all you badass bras. Because it's that aesthetic that I have. And somebody asked me, like, I don't understand the anger. And it was somebody who, was a white male who was older. He was actually my father-in-law, who I love dearly, but he was very put off by the anger of the message and the anger of the women's movement since Trump was elected. And I can't imagine an 85-year-old woman who's watching us do this, who also had to do this 40 or 45 years ago. I can't imagine the anger she probably had. It would be, she did everything that she could to make sure that this would not repeat, and Roe v. Wade, is repeating, and all these things that they have fought so strongly and hard for now is deja vu. And so, I can't imagine. So it was like that, and I am happy to carry on that mantle for my child who said, I'm gonna do everything that I can to make sure Roe v. Wade is not questioned in her lifetime, or, everything that we need to do to make sure that things are covered for the next generations.
If you think that of like one or two things that like issues that you marched for, what would they be?
I definitely marched for. I definitely marched for women's rights to choose. I'm very against the anti-choice people. I definitely marched for people of color. It's hard for me because it's like, I really did what Trump did and who he put into his cabinet, into his inner circle are all racists. They're white supremacists. And I marched against that big time. I also marched for economic equality. The inequality, you're having somebody who is a corporatist run the country. And we're seeing that every day. We saw it this morning, tariffs yesterday. So the income inequality issue is huge for me. It's huge. In Atlanta, it's so huge here. So that was really important to me too. is that I feel like the Republicans are the party of corporate America. And not that the Democrats are not, they're not saints and they're not clean in that either. But it's this overt, he's so corrupt. And every norm of our society and of being the president, we just gloss over it. The fact that every conflict of interest is there. The emoluments clause is, it's like everybody just shrugs it away and it's not a big deal. It's unheard of, it's unprecedented, and nobody's doing anything about it because we look at Stormy Daniels. You know what I mean? Like, that's the reality of how the media is sort of spinning all of this for us.
So you get back to, so
Yeah.
you were walking down to the rally.
Mm-hmm.
Were you able to get anywhere near the stage?
No. Towards the end of the march we did. When they put us sort of into this, like, when we first got there, it became this, like, we walked down a hill down to the march. And it became this, like, traffic jam intersection where nobody moved. And so there were so many people, and we didn't know that at the time. Like, we felt like we were missing it because we're all, like, standing in this, like, massive wave of humanity. And we're at the intersection. We were at the intersection. And we could not move. There was no place for us to go. And it was said that it was just too many people to even march, which was really amazing. But we finally were able to. I don't know where people moved. I don't know, like, how it went because of where I was standing, I couldn't see. But we did end up finally starting to move towards the stage. But that was, like, really late in the afternoon. The rest of it, we were just kind of, all of us were kind of jammed in, listening to the march or listening to the stage, but not being anywhere close to it.
Well, and did you actually manage to hear anything?
Yes, yes.
Who stuck out as being a powerful presenter to you?
We saw, one of the presenters that we saw, now I'm trying to remember who was the presenter. I'm trying to remember who the presenter was that we could hear the best. Like, we ended up seeing Madonna perform, but we didn't hear much of it. And then there was a speaker who came on. We missed Ashley Judd. We missed a bunch of the stuff. So we ended up sort of seeing it towards the end. And I don't remember one of the speakers that we heard that was super powerful to us.
When you, like, looking around the crowd, what was the mood?
The mood was really celebratory. I mean, I think that, I don't think, like, as much of it was, like, a difficult, because, we were log jammed for so long. It was still celebratory. It was still, like, people taking it all in. And, I remember visiting a lot of booths, like Planned Parenthood was there and being super jazzed and getting, like, buttons from them and things like that. So it was really, to me, it felt celebratory. It felt powerful to be there.
So did you actually manage to get to March?
Yes, we finally did towards the end, and I don't have any clue, like, the circuit that we took. It just, like, the people started, like, moving in waves, and then there was food, and so we all kind of went to the food because we were starving, because we had, like, nuts and cheese or whatever the night before. So it was almost like kind of a carnival atmosphere that we ended up moving towards, and I don't know if that's when people started to disperse away from the stage, and that's sort of why we got to finally hear stuff. But yeah, because how it, like, we ended up in a plaza that was near the stage, and it was sort of emptied out at that time that we got there. But there was like food trucks and vendors and, political organizations that were trying to educate and advocate or do their activism for the people who may not be familiar with them. So yeah.
So while you're marching, did you participate in any of the chants?
Oh, I definitely participated in the chants, and I'm trying to remember which chants I participated in. Now I can't remember the chants that we.
There were
There's so many. Yeah, they were really good ones. I mean, a lot of the ones that we ended up were like the hey hey, ho ho, like the predator, it's time to go. Stuff like that. It's like sexual predator, it's time to go. Something like that. I think that's what one of them was. But yeah, so those were sort of how we ended up. And I think by the time we actually marched through, a lot of the groups were sort of on the side because they had already marched. So it was more like, you know, people watching.
Did you see any counter-protesters?
We saw two. And bless their hearts. I mean, of course, they were like men, and they were rallying against abortion. So that was really sort of like what, and you know, that to be there doing that just feels really like contrarian, you know what I mean? Like, it's like really like here's two guys, like, and it was two men, and I remember, and one of them actually was young, and it, you know, it was kind of like disappointing that you're like a 22-year-old talking about, you know, no abortion, and I'm like, where is that worldview come from for you? Because clearly that's maybe your dad, and he's telling you, and that sort of like, it was sad to see sort of like how generationally that sort of develops. And I think that for me that was really difficult too, watching the election pan out, because it was the same sort of thing where you're seeing like, you know, rural white folks who vote sort of like with their parents, or without, you know, sort of understanding the world, you know, as a whole, or like the ideas of other people, you know, and being empathetic to that. So yeah, it was interesting. But yeah, he had to be 20, and the other person was 50, you know, and it was like, you know, they're anti-abortion in the middle of a sea of women who, and oddly enough, like, women didn't even bother, which was awesome. Like, you know what I mean? It wasn't like a counter protest where it was like there to inspire controversy and there to create sort of a moment of drama, whether like, and I know the KKK does that a lot, where they'll go specifically to Black Lives Matter marches to create sort of a controversy and to create sort of conflict in a real way. But yeah, well, they didn't care. It was just like watching them and being like, okay. Which to me felt even better. Like, that you're so sad.
Did you see many police officers?
We did. When we first walked up, we saw National Guard and tanks. And that was before we got to the mall. So, and that was the other beautiful thing when we were walking in. It was freezing. And you had tons of women who'd been on buses or wherever they had been. And there were tons of churches that were open, so that women could go file in. They had coffee, they had hot tea, they had bathrooms, and they welcomed, and you saw these wonderful like priests. And I think the one that I saw had a rainbow flag. The church, it was a Protestant church. It definitely wasn't Catholic. But it had like a rainbow flag outside of the church and hung with honor on the door of the church. And that was really, because I don't have that experience with religion. So to have, and granted, that's my own ignorance, but to have a church fly a rainbow flag on the Women's March and welcome all of us in to get coffee or to warm up or things like that, use the restroom, that was pretty amazing. And as we passed, and back to the National Guard, and as we passed on these side streets, there was a little park, and I don't remember the name of the little park, but there were National Guard with tanks around the little park, like pushing people in. And that was sort of shocking to see. Not that it's surprising, because I'm sure that they had to sort of like, oh, we have tons of people coming. But yeah, it was definitely sort of like off-putting to see. But they were fine, they were nice, they weren't like, you know, but again, I don't know how they would have reacted if it had been a march filled with people of color. You know, I'm sure it wouldn't have been as how they handled the Women's March. And that itself is pretty disheartening.
So did you walk all the way up to the White House? Did you get that far?
We did. We actually came down from the Capitol side.
Okay.
So I don't know, and I don't know the geography very well, but where they let us off, we rounded around the Capitol and down. So we did see the Capitol. And we did, when we were leaving, we walked right by it and left signs. But yeah, I don't know the geography of how we ended up going down like a ramp into the mall area.
There's just so many people.
So many people.
Was there anything throughout the rally and the march that struck you as making you emotional?
Oh, I mean, as soon as, I remember when we first walked down and saw all of this group start coalescing and moving towards. And we walked down a path that was a concrete path, and I saw in the picture, sorry, and not concrete, it was like, I don't know, it's like marbly. It's definitely lighter in color. And on our bus, we had met this woman who went by herself to the march. And she was 60. And she's amazing. So we became friends and we all marched together. My girlfriend and her. And we rounded this corner and this path, it's like the most beautiful shot. It was high walls of almost like white marble looking. And right in front of us, probably 300 feet, was the Capitol. And the Capitol Rotunda. And as soon as I turned and saw these women marching towards it, and I took a picture of my friend Lori, she's turning her head, and just see the sea of women, and it just, I lost it. And I remember when I saw this 85-year-old woman who had her walker and had a sign that was pinned to her chest on one of the side streets, I lost it. Because I felt like, you've done this already. You've done this already probably millions of times for us. And you're out here again. And that's badass. That's super badass. Because her walker had a seat, and I know that she was tired. She had her walker, and she was resting on the seat with this amazing sign. So I took a picture with her. Because that's how I felt. I felt that line. I felt that lineage. I felt connected to the women in the 30s, in the 20s, in the 40s, in the 50s, in the 60s. All the way to now, we're still doing the same damn battle. And we're still having to justify our existence and not apologize for it and say we have the right to determine what goes on with us and our bodies. And you don't need to patronize me. And so that was really powerful. The generations, to see women who had brought their daughters. And Lori and I thought about bringing our daughters. They're about the same age. But because we took the bus, we didn't want to do that to them. But to see all of these women sort of have that line and have the seat of power that for so long we were stuck outside of. So that moment of just seeing my friend Lori and Rhonda and having that shot of the Capitol and all these women who were just committed to having their voices acknowledged, even not even heard, just that acknowledged that we exist was really powerful. So yeah, I mean the speakers, it was more just seeing for me the people who showed up and then who felt the same way that we all felt.
Did that give you a sense of comfort or
yeah, big time.
We'll be okay?
Yes, and that's I think when I posted a picture of the Washington Monument on my Facebook or whatever, that was my thing, was breathe out. Breathe out. There are other people who feel like you feel, who feel so mad, who feel so let down by this election. Because it dehumanized so many people and continues to dehumanize gay folks and dehumanize Mexican Americans and dehumanize black folks. I mean, and women. I mean, it's just we're all people who depend on the ACA. We all need to come together because I needed to see them. I needed to see and participate because I needed to know I was not alone in how I felt. And everybody there felt the same way. We all were oh my God, and how that expressed itself was, as individual as the person who was attending, whether it was tears or rage or whatever, emotion, they're all valid. And it was nice to see it,
So we get to the end of the march.
Mm-hmm.
What time was that you finished?
We ended up finishing probably around 5 or 6. So we ended up to go get food because we had to walk back to the buses. So we needed to go get some dinner. And my friend Lori's best friend lives in DC. And so she met us for dinner. And it was like just it was awesome. I'm sure it drove the DC restaurateurs nuts because all of a sudden they're flooded. And I'm so sorry, servers and bartenders of DC. Like, I'm sure it was like a 3-hour mania of trying to get people who needed to get back on buses. Like, I need to eat in an hour, but I'd like a well-done hamburger. You know what I mean? Like, that kind of stuff where it was like, but, so we ran and got food, and then we just ran back to the bus because we were worried we were going to miss it. And we almost did. Luckily, like, Lori, like, texted and was like, please, we're coming.
What was the mood like on the bus when you got back on?
It was almost like, yeah, we did this. You know what I mean? It was that feeling. Like, everybody was so tired because nobody slept well on the bus. But everybody was so tired but recharged. And so there was actually more conversation on the bus ride back than there was on the bus ride there. And I think because people were sort of like, didn't know what to expect and were trying to get some sleep and they didn't know. But it was almost this like cathartic chatter among everybody on the bus, which was amazing, and people talked in their small groups or whatever, but it was still like this, like, that sigh, and it was beautiful.
So I take it you didn't sleep on the way?
Oh, no, not at all.
So when you got back to Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
Did your husband and your daughter come to?
Oh, yeah. They picked us up, and I was so tired. It was like I had pulled an all-nighter in college. But I was 40, so it hurt more than when I was in college. But I remember, like, we just went, like, they came and picked us up. It was so rejuvenating because they were just like, we're so proud of you! Because they had watched the news. So they were watching the news, and I love that my husband, like, that's all he did was watch the news with my daughter. So she could see what her mom did. And what the women of the United States did. And it was like every march was massive. And so, yeah, he just left it on the news. And so they just watched it. And so by the time they thought I was like a star, I was like, celebrity mom, look, mom, you're in the news. Like, it was that. And it felt so good because she got to see like what action looks like and that you don't have to just take it.
Well, how amazing it is for her the first time seeing this is what her mom's doing.
Right.
And she's doing something that women all over the world are doing. I mean, that's a powerful...
So the sisterhood,
thing. Yeah.
It's the sisterhood, and that was like, and that is like I remember like on the bus, people talked about the Reese sisters, you know what I mean? And the Reese sisters were the Reese sisters, and it was... And seeing it now, and seeing how much that women have sort of galvanized in a huge way politically in every local election that they need to be present in. And they're really stepping up, and I think this is really kind of what needed to happen for us to sort of, for me it was, to be energized.
So when you got back to work,
Mm-hmm.
did you go back on the Monday?
Yes, I did.
Did you feel free to talk about your experience
Oh, yeah.
at work?
Oh yeah, I mean, my boss is a woman. She's a badass. You know what I mean? She's associate dean of College of Education. So she was so proud that I went. She was like really supportive of me going. And I work with a lot of amazing women. So they were like, damn, do it for me. I'm going to live vicariously through you. So it was awesome.
So when did you manage to see any sort of representation of the march on media?
Probably that next day after I slept. So I went home, they picked me up from the bus, we went straight to Waffle House, which was right next to Mudfire. I ate so much food, and then I went straight to bed, I think. And so it was that evening, I think, that I got to see, and was so just blown away. Because I didn't watch it on my phone. I didn't, I was sort of in the moment. So, yeah. And it was amazing. To see it globally was just awe-inspiring.
So when all of the sort of, once the march was done, have you participated in anything since then?
Yes, I actually went to the No Ban, No Wall at the airport when that happened, because that was almost right after, and it was, again, another thing that was so shocking to me and so hateful and horrible, that this time I went, we took the train, my husband and daughter came. And it was really important for me to, and there were a lot of people there, and it was really sort of super powerful to be there for that too.
And that was organized like literally over a weekend.
Yes, and we were actually late to the party. I mean, that was like, as soon as he signed that executive order, things were happening in New York already at LaGuardia and JFK, and here it took, I think, the organization of a weekend. So I think ours didn't happen until Sunday, and theirs was like Friday or something. But yeah, that was that. The problem that I'm running into now is that I'm having sort of like, because it's so much, and every day is hard, you get that fatigue of like, it sort of starts to disempower you, or make it like, oh my God, I can't keep up with this nightmare. So like the DACA, I wasn't able to march for the DACA students, and that's something that's really important to me. But yeah, so I'm trying to figure out how to participate in a way that I can maintain my sanity and still show up.
I think that's an important thing. Is like, how do you maintain activity and not get burned out by that activity?
Right.
And what's your suggestion?
I don't have one. I think, and I think I need to talk to activists like at the Georgia Alliance for Social Justice, and the people who show up continuously at Johnny Isaacson's and David Perdue's offices. I mean, what I've been doing is, and it's not super active, is like resist bot. I will resist bot every damn day. But that's not hugely active because I get these like canned responses from both of their offices, like, yeah, whatever, So it doesn't seem to carry the weight that something like the Women's March or the No Ban, No Wall and DACA marches and immigrant marches have had. So that's the problem that I'm having is that are my actions even making a difference? And I think because we're all sort of in that exhaustion phase of like, I am so outraged daily, multiple times a day, that I don't know how to process and take my power back. So I think I definitely would talk to somebody who's in charge of those organizations, who that's what they do, because I am not I don't feel like I'm a good activist enough. Participating in one march or two marches is not enough. I'm not doing enough.
Since the election, since the inauguration, we're more than a year out. There's a lot of things that happened. It's almost like it literally is daily. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that stands out to you as being like the most like unbelievable or devastating?
For me, the most, God, there's so many, right? It has been, and I'm sorry, I'm going to use bad, can I use a bad word? Yeah. It has been a shit show. It has been every group that is near and dear to my heart is getting dehumanized daily. And that's super hard for me to handle, because I think the stuff in Charlottesville was incredibly shocking. To have footage of a woman being murdered by neo-Nazis is incredibly shocking. So that's one. The ban on certain countries, and also the dehumanizing of a population of refugees who have been so already dehumanized, is incredibly, just like I can't even process what that is. So particularly like criminalizing refugees, criminalizing immigrants, criminalizing DACA students, the incredibly high rates of ICE raids, it's unreal. And the fact that happens it's the blow up of it nationally, nobody talks about it. It is modern Gestapo. And nobody talks about it because we are being thrown so many. And the thing that makes me super upset about that is that, I have, in this modern world, I have a little bit of ADD because there's so many things. I don't want those groups to think people don't give a shit. And that's my fear, is that, the immigrants who are being seized by ICE, that DACA students don't think we care. Black Lives Matter don't think we care because we are just being inundated with horrors daily of what's happening to the most, threatened populations and the populations in this country that they need the most protection. So that's been hard for me. What the kids at Parkland are doing, and the fact that the media, the fact that Republicans and Republican groups are basically telling the rest of the world that they are crisis actors. Like, it's, you know what I mean? It's all of those things that it feels overwhelming. So I think those are I can't pick one. You know what I mean? Like, I cannot pick one because those are all things that really disturb me really, like, a lot. And so I can try to figure out how to support those groups in whatever way, financially or things like that. But I've never felt more, because of the speed of everything and because of the legislation and because of the executive orders, I feel I've never felt more unempowered as an American. And the fact that, like, just recently, Republican legislature was able to tell a company that employs 33,000 Georgians that because they don't have an NRA discount anymore, they don't get a tax break. So you're putting at risk those 33,000 Georgians, their jobs and their financial well-being, because you have been paid off by the NRA. So it just feels there's so many things that it feels hard to focus on.
Agreed. Well, we have an election this year.
Yes.
So let's think about let's look to November.
Okay.
Between now and November, think about a cup half full scenario. What do you hope is going to happen for this country between now and November?
I hope that all of the kids who are 17-year-olds who are going to turn 18 will register and vote, because we need them desperately. I hope that the positive, there have been like little things that are positive that have happened in elections, not here, but in the rest of the country. Seriously, like, there have been really positive changes where you've had, the first transgender politician who was elected. Those make me feel like those are hopes, those are little nuggets that I have clung onto. So that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping for the blue wave, and watching like what is happening as far as activist organizations in Georgia and social justice activist organizations. They've all kind of come together, which is huge. It's amazing. And so I feel like that's one way for me to sort of jump into it, is to find an organization that partners with other organizations that I care about. Because that way we're all, we can pool our resources. So that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for the blue wave. I need it badly.
And I hate to ask this, but what do you fear between now and the end of the year?
I fear that, especially in Georgia, that the gerrymandering is going to kill us. And I fear that that's happening. And granted, the Supreme Court is now, so that's my fear. I fear that because they know that the youth don't buy their bullshit,
that they are going to do everything they can to ensure that the election is not. I mean, with Brian Kemp and what he did with the Kennesaw election results and all of that disappearing before a trial, that's, you know, that's, I fear more of that because it's been borne out and they're doing it. So those are the kinds of things that make me feel really nihilistic. I'm just like, is it worth anything anyway? You know what I mean? So that's really sort of like that's sort of where I am, is that my fear is that there's going to be more Russian election meddling. My fear is that Mueller is not going to get all of his indictments by the time that the midterms roll around, even though I really want them to come now. And those have actually been really positive. So that's my hope, is like more indictments.
A Mueller Monday every week.
Yes! Oh my God, that would be the best thing ever. That was like recharge every battery I had.
So, winding up, if you were to give a piece of advice to anyone who's thinking about marching, what would your piece of advice be?
I mean, cliche of all, do it. Like, that's, you know, what the benefit that I got out of doing it just personally, it felt more of a benefit to me personally than it did to like the movement in general. I'm happy to be like another body that says, okay, I am one more person who made this larger than Trump's inauguration. You know what I mean? Like, I'm happy to be counted in that way. But it was so absolutely what I needed to put my chest and heart back together, to be around and commune with other people who had the same exact feelings that I had. Because it really recharged my batteries and made me gave me the kick in the ass that I needed to go forward, and not be a nihilist. Like, what does it all mean? That doesn't mean anything. So that's sort of, is absolutely do it, because you're showing up, you're making your voice heard, and we are still being silenced daily. Women are being silenced, and our opinions are being silenced, and we're being completely, undermined and dehumanized. So I think it was really, gender-wise, it was really important.
And when you think about, as you were going to, planning for the march and then being at the march, is there anything that surprised you?
I was surprised. So oddly enough, we had a lot, like my husband and Lori's husband were super nervous, because all of a sudden, like probably a week and a half before the march, things started coming out about like, you're going to get pepper spray, there's going to be anti-march people who are looking to start violence. So we had all of that stuff that we had to be, and I don't know if that was sort of like a propaganda campaign to try to keep women not going. And they don't know women, because I'm sorry, you can take your little, you know what I mean? Like, they undermined like the strength and fortitude of women to think that some sort of propaganda campaign about like, be aware, you're gonna get pepper spray, bring a bandana, somebody's gonna start a riot, mass shootings, like they really did do that. And they really did think that that was gonna be preventative to badass women who were like, nope, not gonna do it. And so that was something that was, so, I packed a bandana just in case, but it didn't stop me from getting on that bus, you know what I mean? And so that kind of stuff, it was, those were the preparations that we had to do, but it was weird. It was like 2 weeks in advance. It was like, it was like chaos was gonna reign supreme at the Women's March.
I wonder if that was a Russian.
It probably was. It probably was a Russian bot, and they really thought that global, not even American women, that global women would be like, oh my God, I'm so afraid of pepper spray. They're like, I'll get some Purell, some tissues, I got some ibuprofen in my bag, some Band-Aids, and a bandana. It was like that. I don't know why. And women really did have that reaction. They were like, okay, I'll put a little card of who I am in my bag, but I'm still getting on your bus. Yeah, it was awesome. And I just think it's hilarious, because they really undermined, the will of women. And also, clearly they don't understand women. We're not these like, oh my God, I'm so scared, right? That's why that balaclava went right on my face. And it was bright pink.
Is there anything I haven't asked you that you want to share?
No, I mean, I think we covered it. I just think that, like, you know, I just feel like me, and I know my friend feels the same way, like, we just got in line. We just got into the intergenerational line of the matriarchy, of going, you know what, you fought for it, you know, I'm gonna have to fight for it. Shit, I'm gonna have to fight for it now, she's gonna have to fight for it. And we just went down the line of generations of women who, you know, are finally trying to say, like, no, you're not gonna silence me. And that was really powerful. It was really powerful to be part of that legacy.
And I do want to touch on it because I think this sisterhood, this sense of, you know, generations. Do you feel something has changed with women since, like, with the Me Too movement, Time's Up, all of that? Do you feel like that there is?
Yes, I do in some ways. The Roy Moore election made me feel, what the heck is going on? Because it still was white women who, and granted we're in the South, but still, they were white women who deferred to their husband's judgment on who to vote for. And maybe that's not fair. Maybe they are just crazy too and want to vote for somebody like that. But yes, I definitely feel like that the Women's March movement in particularly gave women the ability to not feel alone. And the Me Too sparks out of that, where they go, oh, there is strength in us both sharing this, and I am not alone. And I recognize I will not stand alone, and she will have my back, and she will have my back, and I don't know if that existed. And I think that how women are treated, and the myths of women being competitive and not supportive of each other, helped contribute to those kinds of feelings of loneliness and a feeling of you're having to risk yourself by yourself. And so the Women's March, I think, was sort of the first time that women felt, no, I have your back. Whatever your back is and whatever you want to say, I've got your back. And so there's strength in numbers. And I think Me Too is absolutely sort of like the birth child of what happened at the Women's March. And I'm hoping that more and more and more and more, you know, and it's been really empowering to see, like, you know, people denigrate, you know, Hollywood actresses who jump in on the Time's Up and the Me Too, but at the same time, like, their voices carry like ours can't. And so we would need like millions of women marching to have our voices carry. They are able to carry their voices in powerful ways that we aren't. So more power to them. They're actually amplifying the work that every woman is doing in their lives and in their small clusters of groups. So yeah, I absolutely think they're related.
That's great.
And I'm so hopeful and excited to see more. And it's interesting to already see the backlash. So we're already seeing the Me Too backlash. And my father-in-law's reaction is the same, where it's this like lack of comfort for men on women empowered, because they're so afraid that it's coming for them. It's not going to come for you if you don't act in that way, right? So it's so odd, because I see like the baby boomer generation being so off-put by women's anger and rage. And I find that so funny, because it's those traits that we were always forced to eat, of be nice, be kind, smile, do this. You know what I mean? So our reality of like, you're not understanding where we're coming from, and you're not understanding where this anger is coming from. He was no clue. So I was like sending articles, you know, I was that person, like forwarding. This article would be really helpful for you to understand the sort of the genesis of this rage for women right now, and how it's expressing itself. So yeah, it's really funny. It's like really weird to see, because I mean, I'm 40, he's like 65, and it's like so shocking to them. Like, they really want us to sort of like go back and be biddable and amiable, because that's how they can deal with us, and that's what they expect from us. I am not that girl.
There's a lot of older white men especially,
Yes.
are really struggling with all of this.
Really struggling. Like, it rocks their whole concept of womanhood. And I'm like, your concept of femininity is like really off. Like, please, like, let's expand your horizons a little bit on what that is, you know? Like, he was kind of shocked, like, it's getting so much better because, you know, your husband helps with your daughter and the housework. Well, I work too. So we're a partnership, and my husband's lovely. He never thinks, you know, he would never, you know, luckily he's a modern male. and doesn't think anything twice of like, oh, I'm going to wash the dishes. But it's shocking to him. It's shocking to his father. Or that my husband deserves the star for being a helpmate versus like, no, we both contribute equally to this, you know, to marriage. But that's such a foreign concept for that group. It's very odd. Where you're like, I don't understand, what? Yeah, it's very odd. But I mean, luckily, hopefully it's changing. I am less willing, I think, at this point too, and this was prior to the Women's March, because I grew up listening to punk rock music, but I am less willing to sort of like apologize for my existence. And I think a lot more women are less willing now to apologize for their existence, you know, on the streets when people say, why don't you smile? Right. And I used to be like, oh, okay, I would smile. I don't do that anymore because I'm not going to make you feel comfortable with what I look like because that's not my job. So yeah, I think more women, and I'm so excited to see like the 20-year-old women that I know. Oh my God, they are like, they have superpowers compared to me. So it's going to be so amazing to see their development and what they can accomplish.
And I think there's a lot of young men who
Yes.
are there, you know, alongside those young women.
Yes.
Who have been, you know, brought up to be a lot more accepting of the world around them and people around them. I think it's a completely different generation.
It is, and I'm so excited. Yeah. They will save us. You know, I mean, that's really like from Parkland. I was like, oh my God, they re-energized me in a way recently that I needed, like that I hadn't felt in a really long time. And watching them go toe to toe and not apologetically, you know, and calling out everybody that they needed to call out. It was I just wanted, they just are my heroes, you know. They are my absolute heroes because they accomplished something that none of us could accomplish even after Newtown. And that was it, you know, it's really empowering to see them do it. And that's not something that's gendered. That's something that's across the board. And they're fighting for my kid, you know what I mean? Like, they may not know it, but they're fighting for my kid. I mean, the fact that, like, when I was growing up, we had tornado drills and hurricane drills, and now my daughter has an active shooter drill. And that was never something that we had to, a reality that we had to even think of. So I'm so excited about them, you know.
It's their time is changing.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. I needed that. I needed that so badly. Yeah, to see it because it's a horror. You know, we've like, I mean, how many of these do we deal with? And they said, no. I am so, like, just love everything about what they're doing.
And they are so eloquent.
Eloquent, savvy, smart, like, social media savvy. Like, they could teach all of those people classes, you know, on how to successfully navigate Twitter, you know, and it's just brilliant. It's brilliant. It's brilliant, and it's exactly what we needed because they're the ones who are going to actually change it.
Are you planning to go march with them on
Yes.
March 24th?
Yes, and I thought about, so the class that I'm actually in right now for my film class is community-based media. And so the whole purpose of the class is that our students and everybody in our class works with a community organization to create film for them for free, right? So they get a film out of it, then they collaborate with us and teach us, and we learn, and they get content for free. So I reached out actually to Georgia Alliance for Social Justice today to try to say, hey, we would love to come and film the march and talk to you and talk to the students about sort of, you know, right now gun control debate is really big here because of all the stuff with Delta. So hopefully we'll be able to create a film for them that they can use for their mission.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm totally. But I was going to go anyway because oh my God, they inspire the hell out of me. They do.
Do you plan to take your daughter with you?
Yes. This one she is going, and that's why we're not going to DC. Yeah.
Well, I think this is a good place to stop. I think we're feeling good right now.
Yes, I feel so much better. Thank you.
I want to thank you for doing this.
Yeah,
this is
thank
great.
you.
It's a really wonderful interview.
Thank you.
And it will be saved forever.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I just love that y'all are doing this.